this is just the project features. Before now, we were like up and down, but now we are proud to give what the project will look like. Well, in paper, we're going to have a new bridge. This has been converted to a big culvert at kilometer 28. Then the other 7 bridges along these different kilometers, we have to rehabilitate them. Then the box culvert will have 16, 10 number in lot 1, and then we have 6 in lot 2. I mean, after the bridge, that's what we consider as lot 2 to the project. Now, 5 culverts will have 136, the laybys, total length of 1,200 meters, and the major intersections along the road. Gbarnga-Salayea, Gbarnga Agricultural Junction, Boye, and Zolo. Then we have some minor intersections, about 10 of them, which we have identified along the project road, the Dorothy Cooper Road to Brooklyn Community, the Police Academy, Toka Farm, Bamwood Village, Bobla Town, Bansu Suluma, Balatua Town 1, Balatua Town 2, and then Zulu Town 2. The road will be divided into 2, 3.6 meters each. Then we have 1.5 meters, we say shoulder, the edge of the road, where at this cyclists can use. Then we're going to have 0.5 earth road, where we're going to put guardrails where it is needed. Then urban sections, like the main towns I just mentioned, the main towns, Banga, Wensu, Benifenai, Balatu is included, and Telemu, Salaye, and Golu, Gandota. We're going to have a different road width. Going to be a bit wider because we notice that during market days you have this spillover of traders and then you have vehicles. So we don't want to obstruct the thoroughfare. The traffic will be moving very well and safe, but then we're going to provide like a separate lane for them where they can actually park their trucks, and so we have a thoroughfare and no congestion. So here you see urban section and the rural section. Urban section we have the rural section we have 11.2. 95% of the road will be 11.2 meters. Before it was 10.2, but we fought a lot, and now we're going to have 11.2, and we're happy. Then 16.2 will be those areas where I said about the service lane, like those big towns. We're going to have extra lane on either side. And then 14.8 areas will be where we have laybys. Areas where like you have an emergency, you just want to pull up and really make a call or do something. So those sections will be like 14.8 meters. But we only have 4% of the total length of the road, which will be in that width. Like the service lanes I spoke about will be total of 4,080, 3,220, and will be on both side meters on both sides total. Now we have about 8 kilometers of patch treatment. I know you know your geography of the country more than I do, because the road is more swampy wetlands. So we identify about 8 kilometers of these 81 kilometers where you will be doing some patch treatments to treat the swamps. Then some private sections along the road is about 32 kilometers, 17.249 in lot 1 and then 14.7 in lot 2. Literally, I will explain those areas where you see the road like a bit tilted like that. If you cruise, that mainly we do that so you can not just reduce your speed. If you want to cruise at 60 or 50, you can still maintain your speed and you can be able to execute whatever code you are going. So you will see some section on the road, we either raise the road towards the left or raise the road towards the right. Those are the super elevated sections where sometimes when you are speeding, some people will be sleeping if they just cruise nicely. We do that so we try to maintain your speed as you go through those sections. Now, the pavement thickness before we were something between 450 and 500, but now we are proud now to say we are going to have a 500 thick road because the road leads to 2 international borders. So let's say that we have something good, and the CBR we say 40, but and my material engineer will tell you that some areas we are getting materials that are even above that, so we are safe. The speed for the urban sections will be 50 kilometers per hour. The urban sections are those areas where, those 8 areas where you have settlement, big towns. Then the rural areas, we try to have 60 kilometers of speed there. the 92%. Apart from the 8 settlements I called, all other areas will be 60 kilometers per hour. That's just the posted speed, or you can go above that if you want to. Now accesses, Mr. Baker was talking about the 600 mm. We are identifying for now about 1 kilometer of that where we will need those 600 mm for drainage purposes more or less, because you cannot do the pavement and there's a side road and you don't have access to those roads, otherwise the water will just damage the road. So we have to put 600
project futures
of
the Gbarnga-Salayea Road.
We don't know yet, but what we identify now is 1.1 kilometer. Now the walkways, this one we look for schools, because we notice some schools, now that we are widening the road, some schools become very, very close to the road. So we are thinking of giving them a raised highway. So we identify 1.5.
They are giving you futures of the Gbarnga-Salayea Road,
hospitals,
how it is going to be.
So we decided to give them a
so she's the expert
walkway, at least to protect them
who is
from accidents.
projecting
And the drainage for
the Gbarnga-Salayea Road if it is built.
Urban areas are those 8 settlements. We are going to have drains on either side also. We identify for now 8,082 meters of that.
So madam, we will go into the interactive section based on the salient points you mentioned, and then we'll discuss contractual issue, and then see where we move from here. So to further enlighten the team, what you discussed is basically the design that we have to execute. And from that point, you will notice that when the road is completed, it's definitely going to meet similar standards as we have on the main highway. Alright, given the level of width that you mentioned. And I think one of the new dimensions that this project covers, it caters for just how the people carry out their livelihood activities here. She mentioned farm and what you call market areas. You will notice that in some instances where you have market days, cars will always congregate on the main carriageway, and that poses a form of traffic hazard. Now this project is going to mitigate that situation by creating extra side lanes, which we call service lanes, so that during market days they will be on the service lane with the market activity, and the main road will be free for traffic. Alright. In terms of drainage structure, drainage is one of the most important part of every road work. And so you notice the amount of drainage structure that have been put in place. Alright. You see that we have a number of pipe covers, and we have a minimum dimension that we are maintaining of 900 millimeters. And the reason why they use that minimum 900 millimeters is to show that there will be self-cleansing of the drainage during the rainy season, and there will be access to line area, swampy area that is. You're going to have sufficient overburden so that the water does not affect the overall pavement structure. And in addition to that, there's going to be massive treatment of the swampy area itself. Alright? Now, in terms of the overall width of the road, we start first with the lanes. There's going to be 2 dedicated lanes for traffic. Each of those lanes, Madam, you said, is going to be 3.6 meters. And besides that, you're going to have shoulders, dedicated shoulders for road users. Alright? And in addition to that, in urban areas, like around the Gbarnga area, like around Salayea area, they are going to have sufficient clearance for parkings in the rest of them. So that gives the overall, designs that are going to be implemented for the project. So then we come to the contractual issue. To brief you, let's look at who financed the work first, because it is the financing that's going to drive the activity. So we have a group of Arab donors that have combined efforts with the Liberia government to be able to finance the road. So the financier, as you can see there, you have Kuwait Fund, you have the OPEC Fund for Development, OFID, you have the Saudi Fund for Development, and you have BADIA, the Bank for Economic Development in Africa, plus the government of Liberia. So together, when the contract was signed, those are the funding streams towards the roadworks, towards the consultancy. And work actually started in earnest in 2018. Although the contract was signed in 2017, I think December. All right, but roadworks actually started in 2018, June to be precise. And then you see that between June and October is in the rainy season. So they spend that time mainly setting up the camp where we are now. And then also setting up the crushing plants. I don't know whether you've been there. So that crushing plant was also set up. And then following that, they started off the road works itself. So to date, in terms of the works that they have executed, they have done complete clearing of the first section. And in fact, they decided to divide the road into two sections. The first 45 kilometers is from the start to the St. Paul Bridge. And then the last is from St. Paul Bridge and goes to the end of the project in Salayea. So all of the major drainage within the first 45 kilometers have been completed. In terms of the installation, they need to move in to do backfilling for some of them. And then from there, the rest of the other road activity will start. Sometime during the March of last year, was it March, April of last year, they decided to do a test case of the paving. So a section of the road, just as you start, was it 1 kilometer or 350 meters? 500 meters, half a kilometer. They decided to do a demonstration of the pavement. Now, what we need to look at is there has been a level of constraint, considering the background of funding. Basically, all of the partners have worked towards their commitment, which is full partners we talk about. But due to our challenge on the side of the government, we have not been able to do the advance payment and subsequent payments. Now, in order to mitigate that, the Ministry of Public Works actually presented that situation to the government, and I think the way forward has been found. And what is that way forward? There has been intensive discussion with the partners to reconsider the distribution of the share of government amongst themselves. So we are pleased to note that after that level of intensive discussion with them, they have all given their approval so that the government share towards the road works, which is around something like 13 million, to be distributed amongst them. So basically what we're going to see from this point forward is non-stop activity, since we have that approval, which comes in the form of an addendum that's going to be signed by the parties. Now, the overall duration for the project itself, from start to finish, should be 3 years for the entirety of 1 kilometer. We will have to make some adjustment to ensure that for the period where we had lapse, when there was no funding, particularly from the government side, how to recover that time. There are two ways. There will be an extension in the time, but at the same time, we are encouraging the contractor to increase their resources. And one way they could do that would be to work in 2 separate sections at the same time, and to help to reduce the time frame for work. We believe that in addition to the fact that government is not contributing to civil works, yet we are responsible for the resettlement action plan. So while that challenge for contributing towards civil work has been removed by the agreement with the partners, we are left to do the resettlement action plan. If you travel along the route, you will see that there are a number of structures that have been marked. All right, the total sum for the first 45 kilometers is around 1.2 million, which have been validated. which means we had the social safeguards people coming to site, having consultative meetings with the property owners, and we are at a point whereby we must also start to do that payment, the resettlement. You will notice that having taken into consideration our own financial challenges we have, we structured the project in such a way that the issue of resettlement will not hamper the work. So as part of the contract obligation, we told the contractor we will work the areas that have no issues with resettlement, but at the same time, between the construction zone where you have resettlement, you are able to work, you do any work. And that is why you can see from the start of the project, they have gone up to 45 kilometers. Nonetheless, it's a contractual obligation that we must fulfill, so it means that we have to work towards that aspect. And I think one of the key reasons why the contractor had to, what we call, reduce their scope of activity has been bordering around the issue of payment and around the resettlement action plan. We have solved the issue of payment now, so we now need to look at the one associated with the resettlement action plan. We'll be grateful if we can sort of work with the consultant. It may not be the entire amount that will be needed immediately, but we want to look at the most critical areas, that stopping the contractor from going to kind of widen it. And I think it was good from what they mentioned, looking at what the road was, the road width, what it was before, to what we're going to have at the end of the day. It requires significant significant amount of widening that will allow us to achieve that. And because we are doing this level of widening, it means we are taking up, properties. And so we must compensate the people in a satisfactory manner. All right. So basically, this is where we are. We believe that we are on course to move. Even from the project standpoint, we were surprised when we heard over, the air that people were removing equipment from site. We want to categorically say that's not the case. As you can see yourself, contractor is in position to work. Consulting team is resident here. They were here throughout the season. All right. But now that we restructure the plan, work is going to begin in earnest. I don't know whether you went to the quarry site, but it would be good for you to go there and see the stock part of quarry that is there, which is sufficient to go up to 15 kilometers of the way. In fact, there is no space for them to continue with the crushing activity. So over this construction period, we want everyone to be assured that work is going to continue in earnest. There's funding available to the project. The partners have agreed to cover government financing, and that the government itself will cover the cost for the resettlement action plan. So I think I'll start this one. Minister, you have some comments?
Okay, thank you so much for the encouragement. It was excellent. And thank you so much for our consulting. We actually appreciate the presentation of your given. Senator, I think we were both at the Capitol buildings and we talked about this project. So in my conversation with your team, I said that we had a site visit and to make necessary to be a part of it. So having heard what all we have said, I don't know whether you have a comment on the person. Stephen, you have observation.
So folks, we stay here, Spawn TV.
Thank you, Madam.
Let's join Lofa County Senator Steve Zaga.
Thank you to the consultant, GICO, the Ministry of Public Works, all of us here. The political eye too often don't see the technical details, so it's understandable. When you are the people's deputy, the pressure is on you. We felt courteous as a committee when the acting Minister of Public Works visited us on the strength of a letter we placed on the Senate floor against the backdrop of man people in Lofa and Bon County. And I'm here with the political officer of the Senator of Bon County, Henry Topa. So what's the full name?
Stephen Jeffrey.
Stephen Jeffrey works with Senator Henry Topa from Bon County. I'm here with my chief of officer, Pet Gossin, for 5 years, is it? On the strength of our communication to the Supreme Liberia Senate, the activities of her were called, and she was courteous. The fact that she had not been in charge for long, she came to give an update. We thought it was befitting. We want to use the opportunity to also thank the partner for taking part of government responsibility, 30 million or so that send the 4 major partners has shared that between in the month itself. I think this should be a get goal. And then on the issue of the rehabilitation and resettlement, I think we all have a civil responsibility to our country. So those of us who live on the road toward Bon County and Lofa need to now get ready to bugger up as the government get prepared to liquidate that indebtedness. We ourselves should be prepared, because from the presentation it suggests to us that there will be some widening, and from the presentation it suggests to us that there will be some consideration as to the thickness, considering that the border countries, the border county have 2 additional ECOWAS countries, that is Guinea and Guinea and Sierra Leone. And interestingly, 2 are also a member of the ECOWAS Parliament of Trade, Free Movement and Commerce. So we want to give the time to thank all of us. Understandably, people want to see road. So when the ordinary people pass by, they don't see the earth-moving equipment, they raise concern. And if they raise concern, as they are big people, we got to talk for them. They have not been seeing the earth-moving equipment, sir. They have not been seeing. If they are seeing it, yet when the president gets the state of the nation, we begin concern. Then I got mounting pressure. I have to send people from Bon towards this side, from Lofa towards this side. But the presentation is welcoming, it's unique. We feel glad. We hope that this time around the government will play whole portion. I have a few questions. I see 500 millimeter. Is that a minimum or the maximum? Isn't there a consideration to increase that millimeter? I see 500 millimeter. Then I see somewhere you got 8,082 meters for urban drainage. And then I'm thinking, what do you have for the rural drainage? You said we got 45 kilometer reach so far. And the next thing is the issue of pavement. Where do we stand on this? Do we just stop at Salayea? Do we go beyond town? Do we go to Vonjema? Because Vonjema is the provincial capital of Lofa County. Before reaching Vonjema, you pass Salayea, you pass Zozo, Konya, then you reach to Vonjema. And it is also our hope and consideration that it should go as far as Menekona, because Menekoma is the border with Guinea and Sierra Leone, but connect both Liberia, Guinea and Sierra Leone. And before there was a big hub. What government will reap from this is not just the agricultural benefit, but when you do this, you're going to have a hub where you have Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. But let me stop here and thank the acting minister of Public Works for your patience, your understanding, and I saw how you were able to explain in detail to us for the short time you served there. We want to say thank you to the consultant, Chico, and all of us. Let us hope that we match words with deeds. As we start, let us keep it up. Let us keep exchanging pleasantry, comments. Let us exchange information so that we also help. Since we are the people's deputy, we are the lawmakers. When you talk to us, we talk to them, they lay the tension and the fear. Then it enhances their cooperation. Thank you very much, Madam Minister.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So that was the voice of our own senator. Senator, thank you so much. So from our own side, from the Ministry of Public Works, what we would like you to do for us is to work through your chiefs and your elders to talk to those that live along the affected areas where we're supposed to do the demolitions. So you can talk to them to have some consideration, because probably maybe we'll be coming and we need to move with the project. Or maybe it will take some time to have them pay. Maybe they can give us that time, move out, but we have it on record to have them pay. So I'm thinking that we have that meeting with them to see how we can work it out, because that's something that we want the project to move as fast as possible. So maybe it might take some time to get it off with the cash payment, but they must understand that the government have budgeted. As long as your hospital is marked, your money is coming to you. But in the end of the project, we really would appreciate if you can give us some time back. Find an extra place of money. You should not be seated and just waiting for government to pay before you move. So we have that understanding. Because sort of team will have that understanding as we are preparing the payment. They say should be preparing the move as well. So thank you so much for what you have said. So Minister Engineer Baker, I want you to just give some clarification on that, on the 50 millimeter.
The 500 millimeter.
500 millimeter.
We'll take this here.
So you know the road is constructed in several layers, right? The 5 layer by design is the maximum. It's the maximum, all right? Which means the amount of earth that you have to put in layers. Like if you have a swampy area, in a swampy area you need higher thickness. So that 500 is the highest thickness that you can achieve. But on top of the earth, where you have the sub base, you still come up with a second layer. And that's going to be the cross tomb base. And I think you see from the presentation she mentioned 200 to 250 millimeters thickness. That is on top. You know, in addition to the maximum that you achieve for 500, then you have to come with the cross tomb base. Alright? And in some instances, the cross tomb base is around 200 millimeters to 250. Again, it is the ground condition that dictates the level of thickness that you have. So on the top of that, that's where you're going to have asphalt placement. And I believe as Liberia has harmonized with the rest of the West African region, the design is good to carry up to 11.5 tons. That's the basic now all around. Previously it was around 8.2 tons for the design. That was the basis for the design. Now because we are close to the border, we have close cross-border trade between Liberia and other countries, so we have harmonized, that as well. So that takes care of the 500. In terms of the 800, what she has sought to do, 8,000, what she has sought to do is to just give you an idea of the overall linear distance for each of the different structures. So like she mentioned, drainage work around towns, she says it's going to go up to 8, did you say 8 point something kilometers?
It's 8 kilometers.
Around 8 kilometers. So if you look at all along the road, what's going to congregate or aggregate rather into that amount is how she got the 8. In some other instances, she mentioned also the service road, and I think for those you say around 3 to 4 meters in its totality. So that means if you add all of the service road at different locations where they have markets and you sum them, it will be equal to a continuous distance of 3 to 4 kilometers. What was the last part?
I was asking about the other areas where we're going to have grains.
Okay.
Those areas we're going to have those tapitos, those sections.
Yes.
Intermittently along the road.
Yes.
And for high field, we're going to have the calves and the gutter.
Yes. Yes. So all issues of drainage have been catered for. Like she mentioned, you will not have the drainage continuous along the entire length of the road. But as the situation repeats, in order to keep, the necessary protection against erosion, she mentioned using the U-drains. And then also she added the fact that accesses to communities at times when they are left out, that creates the basis for damage to the pavement. So when you have towns, they're going to use 600 mm pipe cover, all right, to be able to sort of.
Is that what you call walkway?
The walkway is different. The walkway is along. That one is access. So like you are coming from the road, from the main road, you're going into the village, right? So annexing the village to the road, you have to put in a cover so that you'll be able to protect, the drain for that. So design-wise and meeting the kind of standard, definitely from the position of where we are, is going to meet all necessary standards. Now, what I would want to add to what the minister said, there will be the need for collaboration between the workers and the community in terms of the work that we are going to do. Because at times, if they live in structures that serve as a basis for continuation the next day, if they come back, they should read it in. They will put in a peg that gave them levels. If they come back the next day, they should meet those pegs in. Other than that, they will offset the work and have to redo it. So that's the kind of thing. If they place in the cross-tomb base, people should not come and take it from the road and carry it. So that's the kind of cooperation that we need, to foster with the people.
And again, I think you may want me to speak on that briefly, and I can assure you because the both caucuses from Bon County, from the far, so keen and concerned. From Bon County government, 9 members of the Bon County Legislative Caucus, local had 7 members, Liberia was 16 members. If we can't, I can assure you, because I chair the local county caucus, we are prepared to remain engaged. Let's have a dialogue, let's have a conversation. Even if you come here, you can be assured that my chair will all come with you. We will speak in our respected vernacular. We will speak in the Pele, the Mano, the Kisi, the Bandi, the Mandingo, you name all the tribal Loma, everything. We will speak to our people so they understand. Because they said need it. They need it so much so that the impact on them is just more than us. Because most of them, be honest with ourselves, most of the time we aim over here, they are here. But just one last thing I want to get for you, Mr. Baker, is that you said the word we're commencing earnest. I mean, can you put some time frame to that earnest? So that when I'm talking to my people, the word begin earnest.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
So that earnest, what is that earnest?
What I mean is, once they have started now, there's going to be a continuation. There's not going to be any stop. Or you will see that a slow start will start to rise.
Yeah.
All right, until it reaches that maximum level. And that's why we indicated that enough groundwork has been done. We started off by saying that they have done a clearing of the entire 45 kilometers in Lot 1. They have even moved on to sections of Lot 2 to do clearing, which is the first step. And then they've started to do earthworks. The entire 45 kilometers, they've done the basic work, which is putting in the drainage. And they are now backfilling, as you can see on site yourself. So they are going to do some correction of earthworks in terms of completion of the sub-base layer. And once they hit that point, you will see them coming over the cross-tomb base. While the group that is doing the earthwork is continuing, you see the people from the start will be coming on with the pavement. And that's what I mean when I said the work is going to, harness. All of the activities will be carried out simultaneously. Yeah. And then you mentioned something about the other sections, right? This project is for 81 kilometers. So all the funding we discussed is with respect to the 81 kilometers.
Reaching the Salayea.
Which we should go to Salayea. But we are aware that there are other plans to do section 2, all right, which is the 50 kilometers between Salayea and Konya first. And then the third leg is between Konya and Jama, for which we call some financing instruments have been signed already. And then the next to follow, of course, on our African development, and I believe it is from Gbarnga going to Liberia. So, in other words, the entire length, of the road going to Gbarnga in some shape or form is covered. But there has to be concerted effort to follow up closely on all of the issues. And I think one of the best ways that the minister said is to remain engaged. And we will also, from our own point perspective, be open, to meeting people like yourselves who have direct access to the people. Site visit, one thing is open to everybody. It is not only restricted to the technical part, it also related to how we interact with the people on site. So you are welcome at any time we are having site visitation. And I believe it's good because when there's a bottleneck that we cannot solve, obviously you'll be there to help. So a problem shared is a problem unsolved. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Mr. So, okay.
Sorry, I just want to add two main things that is also disturbing us. We noticed that the residents are burning tires during night watch. So we have to caution them because they are burning them right on the pavement. And the other thing is garbage disposal.
Okay.
Which is a lot on the road, and it's not nice if you prepare your work to come next day and you don't put a lot of garbage on the road. From Gbarnga on to Salayea Road, is that one. Not dispose the garbage on it. That's on the garbage.
Okay.
So, understanding also,
Yes, ma'am.
so with the coordination, I think you all work it out together. So, I mean, I think we have gone so far. So, you got any further questions to ask? Okay, so I would actually appreciate you carrying this message back to the caucus, your people, that indeed the information about the white news stuff is not true. The world is ongoing. Probably we had some issue that been settled already. So the only thing we ask of them is to cooperate, to collaborate, so that we can do this right. Thank you so much. And not to so me, let me take my time to introduce our team from the Ministry of Public Works and also from the IRU.
Emmanuel Johnson, engineer.
I'm Augustine K. Mami. I'm John K. Robert Jr., Director of Construction for the Public Works.
So,
G. Simon Gamner, Assistant Communication.